Trump's need to sue is a reflection of his mental health. Dr. Justin Frank, professor of psychiatry, drops by to explain this. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And on the line with us is Dr. Justin Frank, the psychoanalyst and clinical professor at the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Science at George Washington University, and the author of Trump on the Couch. On the Couch and Bush on the Couch. His Twitter handle is Justin Frank MD. And Dr. Frank, welcome back. We were talking yesterday offline, Donald Trump and his lawsuits. What does his, I mean, he's had this as a business person. Now he's suing to stop vote counts all around the world, or all around the country, excuse me. What does this tell us about him?
Well, it tells us, first of all, that he has what's called arrested development. He psychologically has not been able to develop into having a complex way of thinking. So he uses particular ways of resolving problems, which involve attacking reality, attacking other people, using his money to bully people, and it's a basic defense that ultimately cannot mature. So most of us, we develop more sophisticated defenses and ways of coping with anxiety as we get older. We use humor, we use various ways of coping. But he has not. He essentially attacks reality because he has an unconscious that's very deep hatred of reality. And that's actually a kind of a psychotic part of a personality. What we've seen with him during his presidency and before, all these lawsuits are what is the constant thread. The circumstances, the subject of the lawsuits are always different. They're whatever is going on at the time. But the process of the lawsuits have to do with his basic, fundamental, pathological coping mechanism. His Trump remains the same. It's an omnipotent defense. It's a defense of feeling you are not right. I'm going to get what I want. This is what I need. This is what I have to have. And he has always been this way since he was a child. And you can see it all the way through his development or his growth. He's grown without developing psychologically at all. So his world is very constricted into good and bad, black and white. And these defenses are very primitive. So the basic thing that's behind the lawsuit is an attempt to attack and destroy reality and to deny it and to deny its existence. It's also a way of evading any responsibility, which we've seen in him, always blaming other people and always evading responsibility. But the other part is that it reflects at another unconscious level, in my experience in getting to know him through this book, he has a deep need to be rescued by somebody. And in this case, and he denies it to himself. So he goes on the attack, but unconsciously, he's always being rescued by lawyers. So on the one hand, he appears to be attacking, but he's actually having other people save him and rescue him. And at the deepest level, that was originally his father. Roy Cohn helped him codify that way of acting so he could really attack and look like he was an attack dog when actually all along they were holding his hand and they were rescuing him.
That's interesting that you got to his father, because that was going to be my question. Is his father, on the one hand, was not a nurturing father. I mean, that's fairly well established, no. and Mary Trump talks about this in her book. And when Donald got, his ADHD or whatever it was got bad, they just sent him off to a pretend military academy, to a school that where they pretended to be in the military and they wore uniforms. But on the other hand, when his casino in New Jersey was failing, his father walked in with $1 million in cash, bought chips, in other words, handed the money over to the casino, and then walked out with the chips. which was probably $30 worth of chips. And so his father has rescued him, and it turns out, his big thing during the campaign was my dad gave me $1 million loan, which I had to pay back. We discovered when the New York Times did a deep dive on the whole, estate and how it shook out, that Trump had actually walked off with almost $450 million of his daddy's money. And this was back in the 80s, when that amount of money would probably be worth $700 or $800 million, maybe even $1 billion today. So his dad really was rescuing him repeatedly. Is he seeing the courts as essentially a father figure or a power figure that can save him?
Well, he's seeing not the courts are not going to rescue him, but his lawyers are going to rescue him. His lawyers are like his dad. His dad came to his rescue and gave him money. Now his lawyers come to his rescue and give him power and force, and they help him defeat whoever the bad guys are for him. But basically, you're right. The lawyers unconsciously are like his father, who he has never gotten over this need to be rescued. And it's very deep. You're right on the money there. And that's what he did. He was rescued around the casinos. He was always saved by his father. And yet at the same time, he was also sent away by his father. The reason he was sent away to military school, though, and was because his behavior was out of control, because his father, who was actually very smart and very tyrannical, both, said to himself, I cannot cope with my son. He is too much for me. His behavior is out of control. He is dangerous to his siblings. He is dangerous at school, and he has to go to some form of a military academy where they set limits for him. And that there, even though it was a sort of a pseudo-military academy, one of the things they did was he became very neat. He made his bed. They insisted on organization and structure, and he did those things. So he learned how to temper his rage and focus it a little bit more. But the impulsiveness has remained, and his need to destroy and attack is constant. And his father could never control that. And so his father ended up... Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You go ahead. You go ahead.
Finish your thought, and then I'll ask my question.
No, his father never could control it, so he tried to temper it. Donald actually learned to try to do certain things behind his father's back still, even as an adult. But whenever he was caught, he just gave in. His father was very controlling, very powerful, and yet at the same time was his lifeline to any kind of success.
So if Donald Trump is saved by his father over and over and over again through his early life, and
yes,
we see in the election of 2016, if the allegations of our federal Justice Department, of the FBI and the Justice Department are correct, Vladimir Putin saved him in that election and made him president. That's right. Thus, he goes to Helsinki and spends 2 hours holding hands in private with Putin, and then comes out and says, Putin's wonderful, our intelligence agencies are full of crap. So how does this, so it seems like that's kind of an extension, and Putin has become his father's surrogate, but now it looks like Putin has kind of cut him loose, maybe not, I don't know, maybe he's just pretending to, and is he turning to other people? I mean, Jared Kushner had to go to the Middle East to get his $1 billion to save his butt, and, it looks like Donald was involved in that. What's the dynamic? I mean, if that father save me dynamic was playing out large in the 2016 election, how is that playing out in this election? We just have a minute till we hit a hard break, Dr. Frank.
It's really it's complicated, but it's the same dynamic. The dynamic is that's why he had to have extensive rallies. The rallies become like saving people. Those people who he seduces and charms with his comments and his anger, unconsciously, they are saving him and they're protecting him. They're not doing it financially, but they will do it through voting, and they will make him feel stronger and more like a man. He has to do that, or else he's lost. So now that he can't do the rallies and he's losing the presidency, he's sitting and tweeting, but he's also pretty much in his room watching the news. This is a person who needs to be saved. And
That's
he
remarkable.
came across as a savior when he was trying to save the people who were abandoned by the coastal elites. But he was also unconsciously saving himself and getting them to save him.